Section 31 is the latest Star Trek project to be released, a 1.5-hour TV film that is so bad that it managed to achieve the seemingly impossible. Unlike Discovery and Picard, which the paid critics loved and yet were rejected by audiences, Section 31 has managed to unite both parties in believing this film to be complete dogshit for a multitude of reasons. Even IGN didn't like it, giving the film a 2 out of 10. If I was to sum this film up in a few words, I would call it Mission Impossible in space, except the Mission Impossible films are actually good, whereas this is not. A black ops team of highly skilled agents racing against the clock to stop a weapon from being deployed. We even get an automated intelligence briefing near the start of the film, giving us details on the team's assignment, just like in the Mission Impossible films, where Ethan Hunt holds up the camera to get his assignment. Now, is that a terrible concept? No. Under the right circumstances and with competent writers, it could work very well. However, this not only doesn't feel like Star Trek, but it's also not very good as a sci-fi adventure either. Without going into too much detail, the film starts with a younger version of Michelle Yeoh's character from Discovery, Philippa Georgiou, the former Empress of the Terran Empire in the Mirror Universe. We see her during her final trial before becoming the Empress, where she murders her entire family, including a child, which earns her the position of Empress. I did like this scene. We already knew her background, but this helps to put it into perspective. From this point on, the basic premise of the film is the deployment of a Section 31 Black Ops team tasked with stopping the sale of a dangerous weapon on the black market. The arms deal goes down at a nightclub-style establishment outside of Federation space, but just so happens to be run by Philippa Georgiou, which is why she's recruited by Section 1 to help recover the weapon. My issue straight away is the idea of recruiting Georgiou to help in the first place. This is someone who should have been eliminated by some Federation Black Ops team long ago, regardless of her actions aboard the Discovery, though not without being interrogated to reveal everything that she knows first. Ethics and laws be damned. This is a person who is responsible for enslaving entire races and killing millions or perhaps billions of people during her reign, whose knowledge could be very useful if the Terran Empire ever shows up in the Prime universe. Her recruitment seems to be based around convenience more than anything else. She just happens to be in the right place at the right time. After recruiting Georgiou, we get an introduction to the various members of the Section 31 team. We have the typical tough guy leader who hates Georgiou because of her background and his own experiences, a shapeshifter who does very little shapeshifting, a robotically armoured Juggernaut-style guy who acts as the team's muscle, a sexy Deltan who uses her feminine charms on targets, and a tiny alien that controls a Vulcan-looking golem mech from inside a tiny spaceship, and Rachel Garrett, a Starfleet science officer who later becomes captain of the Enterprise C, who's there to keep the Section 31 crew under control. The composition of the team is fine. You have a range of people who can do everything, but they could have been introduced better. The concept of show me, don't tell me clearly isn't something the writers are familiar with. Instead of giving us an exposition dump, show us the team in action, highlight their skill sets and how they work together. Their constant bickering is also very annoying and unprofessional. They don't have to be best friends, but they have to actually work well together. One of this film's major issues is that it's boring. There's plenty of action throughout this film, including hand-to-hand combat and a chase scene, though none of it is particularly interesting. There's a segment regarding a traitor within the team, where they have to find the traitor and deal with the consequences of the betrayal. But as we haven't had any time to build up an investment with any of the characters that we just met, it's really hard to care. A big source of criticism for this film is due to how little it resembles the Star Trek franchise. In fact, it would take very little effort to remove all traces of Star Trek and turn it into a generic action thriller when compared to previous series like The Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and Enterprise, as well as the older films. It lacks the world building, exploration, and emotional tone that fans fell in love with. Instead of building off what was previously successful, the film relies on action-packed fight scenes and a generic plot, neither of which are good enough to impress new or old fans. This film didn't have to be a complete failure. It could have potentially succeeded in two ways, though both of them require competent staff who are writing the content and making the high-level decisions, which we simply didn't have here. I'm not opposed to a Star Trek TV series or film based around the actions of Starfleet's military intelligence branch or some unofficial Black Ops unit. Military intelligence is vital to a nation's national security, and the Federation is no different. You could do something like their actions during the Dominion War, which were vital to the war effort in the later seasons of Deep Space Nine, or facing off against rival intelligence agencies in other established powers, like the Romulan Tal Shiar, the Cardassian Obsidian Order, or Klingon intelligence. If done right, with respect for the tone of the older material and competent staff, I think that a military intelligence-based film or show could work very well. The other solution, from a purely financial perspective, would have been to remove all traces of the Star Trek franchise and release the film as a generic action thriller. This wouldn't require much of a rewrite, given how little the film resembles the franchise. If it was treated as a Mission Impossible in space-style popcorn flick, then people would likely have been more receptive to the film, though without a major rewrite to improve the film's quality, it would have likely still lost money. If you haven't watched Section 31 yet, then I wouldn't bother. You aren't exactly missing much. This film is a boring waste of time that barely resembles the franchise that it's based upon. If you got this far, I want to thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you like this review, please consider liking and subscribing. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye for now.